The puppy continues following the police officer to ask for help. When he realizes the reason, he breaks down in tears. If you enjoy the stories, please subscribe. It will greatly help the channel. The puppy continued to follow the police officer. At a prudent distance, his small and fragile paws barely making a sound on the worn sidewalk. The sun was slowly setting, bathing the city in a golden hue that contrasted with the harshness of the streets. The puppy didn't fully understand what it meant to be abandoned. He only felt the loneliness wrapping around him like a cold blanket. But there was Lucas, a beacon of hope in the darkness. The officer, in his blue uniform and warm smile, approached a group of children playing. Max watched every movement, the way he crouched to listen to their laughter and stories. The puppy felt a growing agony in his chest, an immense desire to get closer, to receive a bit of that kindness. But the fear of the unknown kept him at bay. When Lucas turned to continue his patrol, Max did not hesitate. With his heart racing, he ran after the officer, his small paws beating against the ground as he tried to keep up with Lucas's firm steps. The officer, noticing the puppy's presence, looked back and smiled. The shine in Max's eyes was unmistakable. It was the hope of a new beginning. "Hello, little one. What are you doing here?" Lucas asked, crouching down again with his hand extended. His voice was gentle, almost musical, like a song soothing Max's inner storms. The puppy hesitated, but the kindness in Lucas's gaze encouraged him to approach. He licked the officer's hand, feeling the safety emanating from that touch. For a brief moment, it was as if all his worries disappeared. "Oh, you're alone, aren't you?" Lucas murmured, petting Max's head. "Don't worry, I will take care of you." As they moved away, Max felt he was about to find a home, a place where the pain of loneliness would no longer exist. But as they walked, something inside him began to stir. He glanced sideways and saw a group of young people at a corner, surrounded by an aura of despair. One of them, a sad-looking boy, had his eyes fixed on Max. With an almost uncontrollable impulse, the puppy turned and ran to the corner, ignoring Lucas's calls. He stopped in front of the boy, who looked as lost as Max once felt. The boy looked at the dog, and for an instant their eyes met, sharing a silent pain that only those who have felt abandoned can understand. "You're alone too, aren't you?" the boy asked, his voice trembling. "I wish I had a friend like you." Max, sensing the connection that was forming, approached and licked the boy's hand. The boy smiled, but soon the expression transformed into a mask of sadness. He crouched down and tears began to slide down his face. Lucas, who had moved closer, noticed the scene and his heart tightened. He crouched down beside the boy and said gently, "Hey, my friend, you don't need to cry. You are not alone. There's always a way to find hope, even in the darkest moments." Max, not fully understanding, looked at Lucas and then at the boy. What he felt was a mix of sadness and budding hope. He wanted to help. He wanted everyone to feel loved and safe. And so, in that moment, as the sun finally set, painting the sky orange and purple, Max realized his life was about to change. He was not just an abandoned puppy. He was a symbol of love and resilience. With an encouraging bark, he turned to the boy as if to say, "We're in this together, don't give up." The boy's tears began to dry, and a spark of hope appeared in his eyes. Lucas looked at Max, now with a full smile, and said, "You are a true hero, little one. Let's take you home, and who knows, we might be able to help this friend too." Max, feeling stronger than ever, approached the boy, ready to follow Lucas and discover a new world where friendship and compassion were not just dreams, but a reality about to unfold. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky orange and pink as Lucas and Max walked through the park. The puppy, a little ball of golden fur, followed the officer with enthusiasm and loyalty, as if he could sense the fragility of life around him. Lucas crouched down, petting Max's head, who wagged his tail frantically, unaware that something deep was unfolding in the shadows of his new friend's past. "You're brave, Max. You know courage isn't the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward, even when we're scared," Lucas said, looking toward the horizon. The officer, with a face marked by pain, watched the two with a mix of tenderness and melancholy. "I always believed that justice was the only way to deal with pain," he began, his voice deep and heavy with emotion. "But there are moments when the pain is so intense that it feels like there's not enough justice in the world." Max, as if sensing the officer's sadness, sat by his side, looking up with big understanding eyes as if to say he was there to listen. "I lost someone very special," the officer continued, his voice cracking. "It was a few years ago. An accident, a criminal fleeing from the police. He didn't care about the lives he was putting at risk." Tears began to form in the police officer's eyes, and Max approached, pressing his snout against his hand, offering silent comfort. Lucas, sensing the emotional weight in the air, stepped closer, and with his hand on the officer's shoulder said, "You did what you could. We can't control other people's actions, but we can choose how to respond to them." The officer took a deep breath, trying to compose himself. "It's hard, Lucas. Sometimes the guilt and pain feel unbearable. I swore to protect the innocent, but what if I fail again?" "You haven't failed," Lucas replied, his voice firm but gentle. "You're here fighting every day. You're a hero to those who need protection. Max and I know that being a hero doesn't mean being perfect." With that, Max stood up and began to circle around the officer, as if he were dancing, trying to coax a smile from his face. And as if the puppy had a special magic, a light laugh escaped the man's lips, breaking the barrier of sadness surrounding him. "You're right. This little creature here has a special way of reminding us what's important," the officer said, a shy smile beginning to form. "Loyalty, love, and the ability to keep going, even when life knocks us down." As the sun set, painting the sky with vibrant colors, Lucas and Max formed an unlikely family alongside the officer, united by pain but also by hope. The bond forming between them was palpable, a mix of understanding and support that made them stronger. "Let's do whatever it takes to ensure justice prevails," Lucas declared, looking into the officer's eyes. "Together, we can make a difference." And Max, as if he were hearing every word, barked softly, agreeing with his friend's determination. The officer's tears began to dry, replaced by a new glimmer of hope. He crouched down, welcoming Max into his arms, and for a moment, the trio found comfort in one another. It was a new journey beginning, not just for the officer, but for Lucas and Max as well, a journey filled with courage, loyalty, and above all, love. The city of São Paulo was shrouded in a fog of tension. Sirens echoed through the alleys, and shadows danced on the walls of the buildings, reflecting the fear that gripped the residents. Lucas, a young police officer, felt the weight of responsibilities on his shoulders. He knew that the gang terrorizing the city was becoming increasingly bold, and with each passing day, panic settled in the streets. Lucas's heart raced, thinking, of Max, his faithful four-legged companion, a German shepherd puppy who, despite his small size, had plenty of courage. "Max, you can't stay here," Lucas murmured, looking at the puppy with a mix of affection and concern. "This place isn't safe." But Max, with his bright and determined eyes, seemed to understand every word. He barked softly as if to say, "I'm with you, no matter what happens." That night, Lucas decided he needed to investigate a lead about the gang, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. He hesitated, knowing it was a dangerous place, but justice cried out for answers. With a heavy heart, he said goodbye to Max, but the pup had other plans. As soon as Lucas turned his back, Max followed him, his little paws silently touching the cold ground. As Lucas approached the warehouse, he felt a shiver run down his spine. The full moon lit the path, but the darkness of the place seemed to swallow all the light. He stopped, listening to the noises coming from inside, when suddenly he felt a gentle touch on his leg. Looking down, he saw Max, panting but determined. "What are you doing here, boy?" Lucas whispered, surprised and worried. Max barked as if he wanted to prove he was there to help. Lucas knew he couldn't leave him behind, not now. "All right, but stay close to me," he said, his voice trembling as he gripped his weapon, adrenaline coursing through his veins. They entered the warehouse together, and darkness enveloped them. The smell of mold and abandonment was intense, and the moonlight barely penetrated the broken windows. They moved slowly, each step echoing in an oppressive silence. Suddenly a group of men appeared before them, laughing and celebrating, unaware of the intruder's presence. "Lucas, watch out," Max growled, and the tension in the air intensified. The officer barely managed to react, but instinct made him move, quickly. However, before he could act, one of the men turned and, seeing Max, yelled, "Look, a dog! What are you doing here, you idiot?" The scene unfolded in a whirlwind. Max, in a show of bravery, lunged at the man, teeth bared, while Lucas prepared for a fight. But in an instant everything changed. The man laughed, but his gaze was one of contempt and anger. "Do you really think you can stop us, you brat? That's—" When Lucas realized, he wasn't just fighting against the gang. He was fighting for Max, for his safety, and for everything they represented. Adrenaline mixed with fury, and a wave of emotion took over him. "Get out of the way, Max!" he shouted, and the pup hesitated. But the determination in his eyes did not fade. The confrontation began. Lucas charged at the men, striking with precision, while Max darted between their legs, barking fiercely. But in the midst of the fight, Lucas felt his heart tighten. He knew he was putting Max in danger. "What am I doing?" he thought, guilt growing like an unbearable weight. "I can't let him get hurt because of me." In a moment of distraction, one of the men grabbed Max, holding him by the collar. The puppy, desperate, looked up at Lucas, his eyes filled with understanding and fear. Lucas felt as if the ground had crumbled beneath his feet. "No, let him go," he shouted, his voice echoing like a roar. Anger and despair mixed, and he lunged at the man. When he finally freed Max, a wave of tears rolled down Lucas's face. He fell to his knees, holding the puppy close to his chest. The relief and pain of seeing Max safe were overwhelming. "I'm sorry, Max," he said, his voice choked. "I just wanted to protect you." Max, sensing the fragility of his human friend, licked his face as if to say, "I'm here and I always will be. Together we are stronger." The puppy was not only there to help, he was there to remind Lucas that friendship and courage were more powerful than any gang. With his heart full of gratitude and love, Lucas stood up, looking at Max with newfound determination. "Let's end this together." Now more than ever they were a team, and as the moon shone over the city, they knew they were ready to face any challenge ahead. The sun was beginning to hide behind the buildings, painting the sky a vivid orange, when Lucas and Max found themselves in the middle of the deserted street, surrounded by the tension pulsing in the air. The operation was underway, and the gang members, known for their cruelty, were closer than ever. Lucas's heart raced, not just from adrenaline, but from worry for his loyal companion. Max, a German shepherd puppy, looked at him with bright eyes, full of determination, as if he knew it was time to act. "Stay close to me, Max, we can do this," Lucas murmured, petting the dog's head. The puppy barked softly, as if understanding the gravity of the situation. They moved forward, their steps firm and resolute, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Suddenly a shadow moved to the left. A gang member appeared, armed and with a wicked smile on his lips. Lucas didn't have time to react. Adrenaline took over, and he prepared for the attack. But before he could move, Max darted forward, a whirlwind of fur and bravery. The puppy jumped, biting the man's pants and distracting him just enough for Lucas to take the lead. "Max, watch out," Lucas shouted, his heart racing, but the dog's instincts were faster. With a swift blow, Max managed to knock the man down, making him stumble and fall to the ground. Lucas felt a wave of pride wash over him as he watched the puppy fight with all his strength. But the victory was short-lived. In the heat of battle, a second gang member emerged, taking advantage of the distraction. Lucas didn't see the knife that hit him until the pain erupted in his side, hot and piercing. He fell to his knees, his vision blurring, as an agonizing scream escaped his lips. "Lucas!" Max barked, his heart racing. The puppy quickly turned, his protective instinct kicking in. He lunged toward the attacker, but Lucas, with almost supernatural effort, shouted, "Max, no, come back!" The puppy hesitated, his eyes fixed on his friend. He saw Lucas stumble and, in a desperate move, jumped toward the man, biting his leg with all his might. The criminal yelled, but Lucas was already writhing in pain, his fingers pressing on the wound. "Max, I'm fine," Lucas tried to reassure, but his voice faltered. The world around him began to spin and his vision blurred. He felt lost, as if sinking into a sea of darkness. Max, realizing the gravity of the situation, turned to Lucas. He ran to his partner, licking his face, trying to bring back the consciousness that was slipping away. "Don't leave me, Lucas. Don't leave me." The puppy's eyes shone with tears, and his small body trembled with fear. When the support team finally arrived, chaos ensued. The cries for help, the sounds of sirens, and the rushed voices of the police merged into a confusing roar. Lucas was taken away, but Max stayed behind, sitting among the wreckage, his soul shattered. Hours dragged on as Max waited, his heart heavy with despair. He couldn't understand why Lucas hadn't returned. Every minute felt like an eternity, and hope began to fade. That's when an officer approached, crouching beside the puppy. "He's fighting, kid. You need to be strong for him," the man said, his voice soft yet firm. Max looked into the officer's eyes, seeking comfort from that unfamiliar figure. He didn't want to be strong. He wanted Lucas back. Finally, as night fell and the stars began to shine, the hospital door opened. The officer who had spoken to Max approached, a serious expression on his face. "He's stable, but he needs you. He will call for you. You can be sure of that." Max felt a wave of relief wash over him, but the anguish still consumed him. He followed the officer to the room where Lucas was, his heart racing frantically. The scene was one of painful fragility. Lucas was lying in a bed, bandaged on the side, pale and unconscious. "Lucas!" Max barked, running to the bed. He jumped up, placing his front paws on the sheet. The puppy looked into his friend's face with unconditional love, and in an instant, Lucas opened his eyes. "Max." Lucas's voice was a whisper, but the connection was immediate. The puppy began to lick Lucas's face, tears streaming down his fur. "I'm sorry, I didn't want you to get hurt." Lucas smiled even through the pain. "You saved me, my friend, and I will never leave you." Tears began to fall from Lucas's eyes, mixing with the love radiating from Max. They were together, despite the fear, the pain, and the confusion. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing moment, solidifying into a love that transcends any difficulty. Max, now more than just a dog, was a true guardian, and Lucas, in his vulnerability, found the strength to keep fighting. Together they would face whatever came their way, because true love is indestructible, and hope always rises again, even in the darkest hours. Max, the golden-furred puppy with expressive eyes, stared intently at the officer stepping away from the crime scene. The scent of fear lingered in the air, mixed with the smell of blood and destruction. Max's heart pounded fiercely in his small chest, and his mind raced with images of Lucas, his best friend, lying in a hospital bed. The pain of the young human, hurt by a ruthless gang, echoed within him like a mantra he couldn't ignore. He dashed towards the officer, his paws hitting the ground frantically. "Wait. Please. I need help." Max's voice, though hoarse and trembling, carried the urgency of a lion seeking justice. The officer, a sturdy man with tired eyes, stopped and turned. Upon seeing the puppy, a sad smile formed on his lips. "Are you alone, little one? This place is dangerous. We need to leave." Max shook his head, his determination turning sadness into courage. "No, I need to stay. Lucas needs me." The words came out with fervent conviction that surprised even himself. The officer hesitated, his eyes narrowing as he assessed the puppy. "What can you do? You're just a dog." The phrase cut like a blade, but Max didn't let it bring him down. He knew he was no ordinary dog. He was Lucas's friend, and that meant he had a purpose. "If I don't do something, they'll keep hurting people. I can't let that happen." Max's bravery resonated in the officer's heart, who took a deep breath and nodded in agreement. "All right then, what do you have in mind?" Max led the way, following the traces his canine instinct knew so well. He recalled the shadows he had seen on that fateful night, the cruel laughter of the gang. Each step took him back to where it all began, a dark alley where pain and despair intertwined. "Over there!" Max pointed with his snout, his nostrils flaring, as he recognized the familiar scents. "I saw them here. They were laughing and—" His voice broke as he remembered the horrific scene. The officer followed the indicated direction, pulling out a flashlight that illuminated the stained walls. Soon Max began to sniff the ground. He recalled the smell of Lucas's notebook, which had fallen during the chaos. An idea sprang to mind, and he hurried to search through the debris. His eyes sparkled with fierce determination as he dug through papers and rusted cans. "That's it! Here!" Max exclaimed upon finding the notebook, his paws muddy. He picked it up with his mouth and brought it to the policeman, who looked at him in astonishment. "You found this? Impressive." The officer ran his fingers over the cover of the notebook, and soon his eyes lit up. "This could give us clues about the gang. Good job, pup." But the work wasn't over yet. Max felt there was still more to do. Together they followed the trail of other clues that the pup helped uncover: broken bottles, tire tracks, and even a torn T-shirt belonging to one of the gang members. With each new discovery, Max's determination grew, and his heart pulsed with the hope that Lucas would be okay again. When they finally arrived at the precinct, the officer handed over the evidence to the police chief, and Max stayed by his side, his small body buzzing with an energy he couldn't explain. He watched the faces of the officers light up as they understood the gravity of the situation. At that moment, Max knew that his courage had not been in vain. "You are a true hero, pup," the police chief said, petting Max's head. "You did something that many adults wouldn't have the courage to do." The words warmed Max's heart, but the memory of Lucas still consumed him. He knew the battle was just beginning. Looking out the precinct window, he saw the sky darkening, and a tear rolled down his face. They were not tears of sadness, but of hope. He had found a new purpose. He was more than just a simple pup. He was a defender, a friend, a hero. And so the little Max, with his brave heart and indomitable spirit, was determined to fight not just for Lucas, but for the entire community. Crime would not prevail while he was around. The fight for justice was just beginning, and he was ready to face any challenge that lay ahead. The city was in celebration. Colorful banners waved in the wind, while the crowd gathered in the town square to honor two unexpected heroes, Lucas and Max. Music echoed, but Lucas's heart beat to a different rhythm, almost as if it was in tune with the emotion building inside him. He looked at Max, who stood beside him, wearing a radiant and confident expression, as if he knew that at that moment they were inseparable. The ceremony began, and the mayor, with a solemn demeanor, took the stage. "Today we celebrate courage and friendship. Lucas and Max have shown us that even in the darkest of times, love and loyalty can shine brightly." The mayor's words resonated in Lucas's soul, and he could barely hold back his tears. It was a recognition beyond anything he could have imagined. When it was his turn to speak, Lucas addressed the crowd, feeling the weight of responsibility and the joy of acceptance. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for Max. He not only saved me, but also showed me what truly matters in life." He paused, emotion almost choking him. "Max followed me because he wanted protection, love, something I had lost myself." The crowd was silent, absorbing every word, and Lucas felt that vulnerability was his greatest strength. "I had forgotten how important it is to have someone by our side. During the time I was lost, Max was my guide. He is not just a dog. He is proof that love can find us in the most unexpected situations." Tears began to roll down Lucas's face, and he didn't care to hide them. He looked at Max, who with a deep, understanding gaze seemed to comprehend every word. "I can't imagine how much he helped me regain a sense of purpose. The friendship we built is greater than any challenge we might face together." Hearing Lucas's words, a murmur of understanding swept through the crowd. People began to applaud, and the claps turned into shouts of support. "Lucas and Max! Lucas and Max!" The energy was contagious, and Lucas felt that somehow he was sharing not just his story, but that of everyone who had fought for a place in the sun. And then, amidst the celebration, Lucas realized that what he wanted most now was to fight for justice, not just for himself, but for all who, like him and Max, felt lost and helpless. "Let's come together as a community and protect each other. Let's fight for a world where no one has to go through this alone." His voice rang out strong, and he noticed a spark in the crowd's eyes, a glimmer of hope lighting up the Square Max by his side seemed to vibrate with the energy of the moment. The pup, who once sought only safety, was now a symbol of love and courage. Lucas crouched down and hugged Max, feeling the warmth of the dog's body, who with his presence had transformed his life. "Thank you, my friend. You've given me everything I needed." Looking at the crowd, Lucas realized that there were not just the inhabitants of his town, but a family united by the strength of friendship and the determination to overcome hardships. The tears running down his face were not just of sadness, but of gratitude and hope. And so, under the blue sky, Lucas and Max became more than heroes. They became the essence of a fight that would inspire everyone to come together in search of a better future, where justice and love would always prevail.